The God era of Melee sits as the most iconic period within Super Smash Bros. Melee history. The narrative was clear and simple, and to this day, as it deserves, it's a story that's still told and beloved by many. There's even a perception that the God era was the competitive peak of Melee. But the players never stopped getting better, and in 2022, the game has been more pushed and the results are more unpredictable than ever. With huge community advancements, fresh faces, and some of the largest prize pools of all time, babe, wake up. It's time to learn about the new era. There's a lot going on in Melee, and the new developments can be hard to keep up with. So here is a guide for a time traveler from the era of the gods to the 2022 state of Melee. In 2022 Melee, there are no off-seasons. Well, there was the off-season, but the point is, at least this year, the events haven't stopped coming. With organizations competing to get tournaments to sign up for their circuits, where there was once a summer of Smash, we've basically been in non-stop Smash Town since about April of this year. In 2022 Melee, there's also no shortage of characters, players, or regions being represented in tournament. First, let's focus on characters. If you're traveling from 2015, when life was simpler, you probably remember this guy being at the top a lot.
Come on!
For a Major's top 4 in 2015, there was about an 18% chance of a solo Fox taking one of those spots. That may not sound as overwhelming as you might have remembered it, but then you had Armada playing Fox Peach and Mango playing Fox Falco, taking up the next highest spots. So it was more like half of all players in a top 4 were playing Fox. Jigglypuff, well, Hungrybox, comes in next at 12.5%, with the next highest odds not being until you find a solo Falco at a 5.6% likelihood. In general, dual maining at least was strong in the 2015 meta. By 2018, some things would change. Hungrybox was in 70% of all grand finals. While Solo Fox would maintain similar representation, Fox Falco and Fox Peach would be represented less, though there would be a greater total of dual main at least combinations making it into top 4, like Plup's Fox Sheik combo, which shared a 7% chance with Mango's Fox Falco and taking a top 4 spot. In 2015, we saw more character switching, splitting up the pie chart into some unique combinations. In modern Melee though, we see more of the characters like Falcon, Yoshi, Sheik, and Ice Climbers making it into top 4. Ice Climbers went from 1.4% of top 4 slots in 2015 up to 5% of the time in 2022 thanks to our friend Slug, and that's in a post-wobbling timeline. Though Ices did seem to disappear for a while, the newer climbers are starting to make do with handoffs, leading us to events like this past weekend's Ludwig Invitational, where top modern Ice Climbers talent including Lunar Dusk and Slug pushed through the bracket. So who knows, maybe Ludwig can use this as content for a follow-up to one of his top videos of all time. Another character experiencing a similar rise in top 4 appearances this year is Sheik. In 2015, it was fairly rare to see a solo Sheik in the top 4. We had Plup playing Sheik Samus at the time, and the matchup master himself, Mewtwo King, playing Mars Sheik and even occasionally adding Fox to his roster. So as long as she was paired with other characters, Sheik could occasionally be found in 2015. But in 2022, the meta around Sheik has shifted, with the only dual main combination containing Sheik being Fox Sheik, being used by both Plup and Leffen. Though the number of dual combinations have gone down, the overall percentage of Sheik mains of any capacity reaching top 4 has only increased, in a large part thanks to Jmook. Where in 2018 the meta was mostly defined by Fox vs Hungrybox, in 2022 we're also seeing Sheik vs Zane, with solo Sheiks Crudo, Spark, and J-Flex all still on the rise. Speaking of Zane, Solo Marth has risen from taking 1.4% of top 4 slots in 2015 to a whopping 16.7% in 2022, thanks to both Zane and Kadoran. But there's one more fairly noticeable character representation increase from 2015 to 2022, which can all be credited to just one player and his love for a big red dino. Though Amsa was ranked number 24 in 2015 as a dual Yoshi Falco player, it wouldn't be until 2018 that Yoshi would break into the top 4 of a major. So, starting from 0% representation in 2015, in 2022, Amsa's Yoshi has taken over 8% of major top 4 spots this year. Amsa's move to North America seems to be really paying off, so while you might have to wait a bit longer than usual, do know that here at PGstats, we're planning something very exciting for y'all in the coming year. A final note to make on character representation in 2022 is one on balance. The characters most represented in major top 4s are Solo Fox, Marth, and Jigglypuff. And though Solo Fox still has the largest piece of this pie, it's not by much. This year, we've seen 7 majors with no solo Foxes making it into top 4, with 2 of those majors having no Foxes in top 4 at all. Compare that to Melee in 2015, where if you weren't solo Fox, you were dual mating Fox at least, and if you weren't doing that, you were most likely just Hungrybox. So all things considered, character diversity is growing in 2022. The only outlier here is Captain Falcon, who saw a rise in representation between 2015 and 2022, though there was a decline between 2018 and 2022. But given the rise of Salt, Mech, and Soof, the return of Wizrobe, S2J's strong performances this year, and the continued power of None, hopefully that number will be back on the rise in 2023. Now, let's talk more about players. Across 18 majors in 2015, we saw 16 unique players reach top 4. In 2022, this number has increased. Across only 15 majors so far, we've seen 23 unique players in top 4. In 2015 Melee, there was a very clear boundary between the gods and the Godslayer and everyone else. In 2018 Melee, there was also a fairly clear boundary between the number 1 player and most everyone else. But in 2022 Melee, skill separation between top players is murkier than ever. Though the Sheiks vs Zayn is a huge part of today's meta, it is by far not the only part of it, compared to the days of the past when it was everyone versus Hungrybox, or even prior to that when we saw Mango versus Armada. Today, there's a strong handful of players all gunning for that number 1 spot, and with so many upsets across this year, it's harder to predict than probably ever who will end this year at number 1. And where in the past we mostly had to worry about NA players and certain Swedes who dominated their international scenes, these days international scenes are only growing. While Armada leaving the scene was a huge hit to European Melee, Professor Pro has held down the UK scene since the Gods era, though now players like Frenzy and Fat Tino have emerged to contend for that throne. Sweden has also grown from Armada and Leffen to Leffen, Pipsqueak, Sharp, and Dady. And at DreamHack Rotterdam, we got to see these two scenes combine, plus Spain's Triff of course, resulting in Professor Pro beating out Triff, Frenzy, and Sharp for a Summit 14 seat. The Chilean scene saw Chape and Raiken appear in their top 20 in early 2019, who have now taken the number 1 and 2 spots respectively since winter 2021. And Roche, who was number 1 when those two joined but fell to number 10 most recently, got back on the board at Smash World Tour stop Zenkoku Takai, earning number 3 just behind these two, showing that the Chilean scene is one that will only continue to grow. There's also burgeoning scenes in South Korea and Japan, with Japan in particular seeing a rise between both Ingen and Futsuka Miman, both presenting a strong challenge to Shunsuke, a former hidden boss of the British Columbia scene. Looking ahead now, for the remainder of 2022, we've got about 7 majors still to go, including Smash Summit 14, Saving Mr. Lombardi 3, DreamHack Atlanta, Apex Main Stage, the Smash World Tour finale, and lastly, the Panda Cup finale. With so many stacked events to come in such a short time, there really is no guessing how players will line up come the next ranking period. So before we reach next weekend's summit and the myriad of deciding events to come, who do you think will end the year at number 1? Which region within NA or international do you see as the strongest? Let us know down below and like and subscribe to PGstats for more modern Melee moments.